As rapporteur for the participation of citizens in the EU decision-making, as well as member of the parliamentarian delegation to the Conference on the Future of Europe, I had just now accompanied in a very extended way the forms of where citizens really have the chance to take part in the accompanying processes of decision-making and consultation in the parliamentary work of the European Union. And I must say, frankly, I feel it really encouraging and very good that young people in particular have taken this chance to introduce their views, their proposals, their ideas on the way of how the European integration process must be continued, must be deepened, must be enriched. And I hope that also in the follow-up process for the Conference on the Future of Europe, as well in all other aspects of decision-making in the EU policies, we will face a new etap in the second half of 2022 under the Czech presidency, and in this direction to increase the readiness to make it a permanent structure. Coming to the question of the anonymous voting and maybe to find new ways of majority voting in the decision making, I think it's a quite challenging issue. We have to discuss it much more in the societies, vice versa, horizontally in the member states, because it is not so easy to decide which policy field needs the strong agreement of all societies, of all political institutions responsible for the decision-making. And that leads me to the question, of course, to overcome the unanimity principle by majority voting makes sometimes the decision-making much more flexible, much more faster, much more practicable. But this means that we need forms where the decision-making structures, bodies at the member state level as well as at the EU institution level really take into consideration what is the opinion in the majority of the member states. So not only to delegate the question of voting to the institutions by majority, but also to link them back to the reality in the member states. For example, in the field of foreign and security policy in Germany, we have the precondition that the Bundestag, the German parliament, needs to vote on that. So before we are sending troops outside in certain missions, either by the United Nations or within the frame of the NATO, etc. So that means we have to discuss in which fields of the foreign and security policy we want to overcome this structure. And personally, I think in the defense policy, we need to keep the unanimous voting principle, while in foreign policy, I can imagine that we are introducing new forms. But that must be prepared by a broad discussions horizontally in all 27 member states. And therefore, I would say from the rating point of the House Parliament, I would say here 7.5 points from the 10 points. I think that would be more correctly to my personal opinion. Concerning the civic councils, I must say I fully agree with the recommendations. And I also want to have that the Citizens' Council have a permanent place in the decision-making processes. And therefore, I have also introduced this idea in my own initiative report on participatory democracy and participation of citizens in the decision-making process. So here I would say that is a clear recommendation I fully support, and I hope that also in the follow-up process to the Conference on the Future of Europe, where this idea also has been introduced to find and to create permanent structures, will be embedded in the follow-up process. And here I think also the treaty change by a convention could lead to an enrichment of the democratization of decision-making within the EU policies. Concerning the initiative right, We are already striving a long time in the European Parliament for giving the European Parliament the right of initiative. That, I think, is a precondition for making the whole construction of the European Union more functioning and more reliable, more understandable, more transparent for citizens. And here I want to be clear. I support this initiative. I'm the shadow rapporteur for that, for my political group here at the European Parliament. And I hope that finally we overcome the blockade from the Council on that aspect. And here I hope we find a way in the future. And again, here I would give 10 points as in the previous recommendation number 2. My proposal for a democratic updating of the European Union. I think, first of all, we have to do our utmost to implement all the recommendations, 325 from the Conference on the Future of Europe. Here we have confessed ourselves, we are committed to implement them. And this confession, this commitment must be implemented. Here we have to stick to our words, so that not only words are shaping the reality, but the matter, the real actions matter about our future of the continent. Secondly, I think it is also very clear that we need to rethink in which way the different institutions at the European Union level are linked together. And maybe to think once more, what is the original task of a European Parliament, directly elected by the members, by the citizens, and the members of the European Parliament should be able to be the co-host of decision making, of making better laws in the European Union. So besides the Council, that the European Parliament is a full representative parliamentary structure as it is given to the national parliaments today. And that means we have to give the European Parliament the right of initiative, the right on budget and budgeting, full complexities of the aspects we have to introduce here. And here I hope that also in the follow-up process to the Conference on the Future of Europe, we are going a great step forward. And of course, we are doing this in a very sensitive and specific moment. We are still witnesses of the ongoing war in Ukraine. And we have given, by a huge majority in the European Parliament, Ukraine the status or the right to become a candidate country for future membership of the European Union. But what does it mean? We also have to rethink our functioning of the existing European Union, of today's state of play, and are we ready for the enlargement we are foreseeing? That is also true for the West Balkan countries. So there is not a first and second class enlargement. We want to give all the countries who, after a consultation with their citizens, the chance to apply for membership, and then we have to answer. But that means we have to make our own homework. We have to be very clear. A social, a democratic functioning European Union needs also a change in the way of how we are developing the democracy in the European Union to be able to give concrete answers to the expectations, to the hopes, and to the visions of citizens on the European future.